Is it on?
It is on. We are live and being watched. And hopefully heard, but we'll find that out in a minute.
Okay, so how long have we got?
For about a minute. Minute two.
Oh, okay. So, pretty much it.
Yes.
Okay, gosh, dazzling. Good evening. Hopefully tonight we'll finish this watercolour. Some bits of it are going well, some are needing rethinking, but it feels a bit to me like the home stretch. And I'll also give you a glimpse of the painting I'm doing for the logo, which is the Kingfisher, but I'll get on with this for the time being.
Hope your birthday was a blast. Roger, did you have a birthday?
Happens every year.
Oh, I didn't even know. I could have got you a birthday present.
Ah, well, perhaps that's the best reason to keep it secret.
You're getting lots of birthday wishes.
Oh, wow, thank you. Yeah, it was on Monday.
Happy birthday for Monday.
Thank you. Yes, we did the Q&A 3 times, and we never put them up because for various reasons they didn't work. But finally it kind of worked, and that was on my birthday. So yeah, the Q&A was recorded on my birthday. And Freya had a pair of glasses that said happy birthday. And they looked very weird.
So you've done lots of secret painting this week, haven't you? This is looking different. No?
Not really, no. I didn't touch this till about half an hour ago. Maybe an hour ago, I don't know, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just me sitting here. But I did paint the basic painting for a Kingfisher, which is for the logo. So we'll have a look at that presently. So for the moment, the painting has, to a large degree, to a surprising degree, is monochrome, because I'm painting this in sap green. Pretty much that was sap green. I added orange into the tree, but the contrast between the orange and the blue is way too vivid for the balance of the picture. So I'm going to have to suck out some of the colour out of that, which I'll do with water, so that will balance that out a bit better.
Where do you learn about balancing colours? Is it instinctive for an artist, or does somebody at some stage have to say, well, look, that bit's much darker and more intense than that bit?
I think the answer is not so much instinctive, but it is an insight that you polish, and you get it right by getting it wrong an enormous number of times. At least that's my experience. And I tend, very often I do paintings that are very monochromatic, but I also do paintings that are very vivid. So I really have to look at the balance then. If the painting is singularly vivid, I really need to examine the balance and how it's going to work.
Do you put on lots of layers of detail for watercolour?
I don't know. I'm not quite sure exactly what the process is going to be because I don't do it often enough. But I have an inkling about what I want to do and what I want to achieve. At the moment,
Playing from Roger Dean's MacBook Pro.
Alexa is very interfering.
Yes, shush, shush, Alexa.
I don't know that one.
Bloody hell. We won't enter into this conversation. Yes, it's not going to be quite so monochrome, but it's not going to be quite so contrasty as that. And I need to bring in more of the subject matter and more variety in the foliage, especially in the foreground. And I'm just going to think about how I'm going to do that. What I did is I spilt water down there, and if I had ignored it, it would make a streak. But by wetting the whole thing, it blends in. So I guess if it was a drawing, I don't know really how to compare it with anything.
Have you ever felt rushed or on a tight deadline?
I had a rule for myself and for everyone around me when we were working back in the 70s, and it was simple. It was, if you let it go and it's wrong, it's going to be out there forever. So rather be a day late than have it wrong. Ideally, deliver it on time and not wrong. But you have to sacrifice something, and that is time. You can be late, but you can't put it out, with something seriously wrong with it. So it has to be finished to your satisfaction. So yeah, I was often under external pressure, but internally I tried to be very disciplined about not giving it up until I was ready to give it up. And it didn't mean I was late very often, but it did mean that I didn't allow myself to work under pressure or under undue pressure.
Do you find some pressure helpful or not at all?
No, nothing really. I find being in a good state of mind incredibly helpful, being in a bad state of mind incredibly unhelpful. So, what can I say? Yeah. There are things I can do very quickly, and there are things that I know will take a long time. So if someone asks me to do something that's not needed for 6 months or a year, I will look to do something where I can play around and experiment and put time in. But if somebody wants something the following day, I can do it, but it limits what I'll take on. I won't try and do a month's work in a day.
Is green your favourite colour?
I don't know. Do people ask musicians, is C your favourite note? It's I don't know how to answer that really. I know why the question makes sense, is because it's a colour. There are a number of my paintings that are predominantly green. But I don't feel an unusual affinity to green. In nature, I have a terrific affinity for green. So I love the green countryside, but in a painting, no, it's it's one of the tools I have.
Do you have a favourite colour?
I don't, but I did hear somebody ask that question of Sid Mead, and he did say that he'd answered this question this way before, and he mentioned a colour which was something more exotic than any I'd ever heard, and equally unpronounceable. I have all these blues which are impossible to get your tongue round the names, but he gave this name for a blue, and I looked blank. I said, I've never heard of that before. And he said it's the blue of uranium just as it melts. And I thought, wow, that sounds wonderfully exotic. I don't know if anyone could possibly have seen that. How would you know? But there you go. I love the answer anyway. So, yeah, there are some blues I'm particularly fond of. Yeah. If I had to go on a desert island with one colour, I couldn't do it. I'd have to say rainbow or nothing. I guess I might be spending as much time today subtracting as adding.
For this kind of painting, do you create a physical sketch ahead of time, or do you allow Do you do a sketch first, or do you allow the painting to direct your work?
To a degree, to a very large degree. But I played around with a sketch, which is not for the painting, it's just, okay, this is how it might be. But that's just a starting point. Having said it's just a starting point, this does sort of reflect that. And I wasn't sure whether I'd have it on the left or right, so I did two versions. So, a small sketch. By the way, that sketch was quite tiny, about this big, and I blew it up when I scanned it. So this is going from kind of green clouds into a green forest glade, gradually. And then into that glade there will be bridges and human stuff. It's hinted at now, but it isn't dominant yet. It'll become more so.
Have you hidden things in your paintings?
Well, I'm constantly amazed that people can find things I've hidden that I didn't even know were there. And once they've discovered them, I have to acknowledge, wow, that was there. So I guess the answer to that is, I don't sit down and plan to hide things in the painting, but sometimes it seems that they get there anyway.
Do you use masking fluid with watercolour?
In all my life, I believe I have tried it a couple of times. I can't recall when and where. So it's something I'm interested in, but I've never done it to the point where I think, yes, I'll keep a bottle of masking fluid handy. So I might have some. It might be turned to solid rubber by now. I don't know. but I certainly haven't used any in the last decade or half decade. So yes, I've used it, I've tried it. I didn't find that it didn't work. It sort of worked. It didn't turn out ideal for me, though.
Have you ever disliked or destroyed a finished painting?
No, but I have disliked and destroyed a half-finished painting, or abandoned one. So when I'm painting in acrylics, I don't have to worry about it, because no matter how badly wrong it goes, in the end I can put it right, even if it means painting 90% of the painting again, or even all of it. I can get it right. But when I was doing watercolours and drawings, it was very precise and very delicate. I did abandon one or two, but not when they were nearly finished, when they were barely started. So when they were nearly finished, if I thought, wow, that's wrong, I would figure out how to fix it, because it was usually possible to fix. You know, you have a lot of options about how to fix things. It's weird. I'm not on the camera. Oh, I am.
You are. I thought we'd had enough of the painting. We wanted to see you.
I could actually. Yeah, wait a minute. Should have done this at the beginning. That makes it easier, does it?
Yeah.
Ah, well, we should have done. Oh, and there's more light on it, so it's even better for me.
There is. Oh, yeah. Except I might need to move when you paint.
No, I can paint from the side.
Okay.
What I'm doing while chatting is I'm thinking what I'm going to do next, which is what I'm doing half the time with the painting. And when I'm thinking what I'm going to do next, it's something might excite me and think, oh, that's working well. I'd like to extend that or develop that. Or sometimes I'm thinking, whoops, I need to subdue or subtract that bit. But right now I'm just looking just for the next area that requires attention.
Are any of your paintings in a museum? I have, I can't remember how many pieces, but I have a piece of furniture and I think 11 album covers and a bunch of drawings in permanent collections. Permanent collections of prints, drawings and paintings at the Victoria and Albert Museum. And I have a piece of furniture in the permanent collection of furniture. By being permanent doesn't mean it's on permanent display. They might be in storage indefinitely. And there's a museum in Vienna, which was essentially, it's a furniture museum, and they have one of my prototype sea urchin chairs in their permanent collection. Paintings. I've exhibited in lots of museums, and I have letters from a number asking for pieces. The V&A wrote me a letter saying they would like to acquire the original Virgin logo, but they had limited funds, and so I rang up Richard and I said, how would you like to buy this off me and donate it to the V&A? And we did. We went through everything, but in the end he said, oh, I think it should hang in my office for a while. So I don't know if they ever got it. In fact, I'm pretty damn sure they never got it. Need to put that right, I think. That's like when you buy someone a Christmas present and then you can't part with it when it comes to it and you just eat it.
Well, what can I say? I donated it, so... Oh, what did I do? It sounds like I sold it to Richard. I didn't. I donated it to a Steiner school and Richard bought it off the Steiner School, so the school benefited,
Okay.
and I hope the V&A would benefit. But well, as I say, it's something that didn't quite work as it should and needs remedying. I have been asked this year to do exhibitions in 3 museums, and I tend to like doing that because I'm not under pressure by a gallery owner who wants to sell everything. So I enjoy it. The last time I did a fairly big exhibition in a museum was at the Isle of Man National Museum, and they did a really good job of it. They actually asked me, what colour would you like the walls to be? And I thought, wow, I actually get to say I've never been asked that before. So I chose the colour, and I said, I think the paintings stand out very well against a dark background because they look much more luminous like that. I don't like them on white, and they did, and it looked fantastic. When I've been doing art fairs in America, where we've had a say, I've tended to go for felt covered panels, and we do choose the dark greys or the blacks, and that works very well for the background. And that was a lesson I learned from the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man were fantastic because besides doing an exhibition, they arranged with their post office to do a set of postage stamps. So
Yeah, several people have those stamps.
yes, yeah, that was a lot of fun. I love doing that.
What do you tend to do with your original paintings? Do you keep them and frame them, or?
You know, when I did the exhibition at the Isle of Man, I just wanted to stay in the room with the paintings all the time. I'd never seen them all in one space like that, and I just loved walking around it. You know, when there was nobody there, I loved that. It was like, wow, I've not been in this situation before. And of course everyone thought I was bored to death with my own paintings, would take me off for meetings or lunch or whatever. And I thought, I'll get a sandwich and I'll just sit here. So I have talked to people about this, and I don't want to sell them all. My ideal scenario is sell a few so I can afford to build a sort of visitor centre with my architecture and house the paintings in the same building. So that would be my ideal scenario. And we're working towards that. It's not a vague ideal. It's quite carefully planned out at the moment and could happen.
Have you ever got up in the middle of the night to spontaneously paint? I've got up in the middle of the night for whatever reason, sometimes in the early hours of the morning, sometimes not long short of when I would normally get up. Since the lockdown, I have had to get up quite early, 6 o'clock, to put the rubbish out once a week. And I've often thought, don't think about it, just get up, put it out, you can always come back to bed. And I don't. I start painting because I love working that time of day. And if I haven't had, for some reason it has happened, I don't go to bed till 2 o'clock. Getting up at 6 is quite a struggle. But I'd rather go to bed at 10 o'clock and get up or 11 o'clock and get up at 6. I love the early morning. Now, if somebody means really early, like 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock, no. If I have an idea,
I kind of have faith that I'll remember it. And if I haven't remembered it, it's not distressing because I can't remember. I've never had the situation of thinking, last night I had a really good idea, but what the hell was it? That hasn't happened. If I forget, I forget. But I have thought, right, let's see. I had this idea last night. It seemed to be incredibly logical. Does it make sense in the cold light of day? Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. I'm really tempted to soak this and try and lift that off, but it may not work, and I don't know if I want to do that in public, but yeah, I might.
Take a risk.
Yeah, I will. But I'll try a little area first.
You've been advised to get in touch with Disney to work on their Star Wars world.
Have I?
Yeah.
I have to say, I probably won't take that advice because I haven't been a huge fan of Disney. But George Lucas wrote me a very nice letter, but he's no longer involved with Star Wars. So, I don't know. Okay, so that, I'm not destroying it, but the colour's coming off relatively reluctantly, but it is coming off, so I can proceed and do that.
Have you ever done a self-portrait?
No. No. Ooh. That wasn't supposed to happen.
Don't tell them that.
Salvador Dali had a good quote about accidents. I can't remember what it was, I must look it up. But I do remember reading it and thinking, yeah, I must say that to myself whenever there's something that doesn't go exactly as anticipated. Which frankly is pretty much all the time. You can't anticipate how everything will go. Okay, so that may not look it, but that is actually slowly subduing the colour. So I'm going to do that a few more times and it'll be more or less where I want it to be. One of the things, if I wasn't doing this live, I would do it horizontal so that it wouldn't run and I could soak it more thoroughly.
Do you mean you would actually submerge the painting on the corner?
No, not really. But I would allow it to be damp for longer and really damp. That's one of the beauties of working on this paper. It's very thick and it's, in the past the watercolour paper I used would have all buckled up if it wasn't stretched, but this won't do that. At least I've never abused it so much that it's done it.
Someone asks if your paintings are the way you see the world.
No. How I would like to see the world. Yeah. When I was a child and I lived in Hong Kong, I came across feng shui, and I came across it in a really weird patchwork kind of way, because I wasn't aware at first of any books on the subject in English, so it was all kinds of hearsay, and I'd be told something about it in that context, something about it in another context, and gradually over the years putting those things together, but also coming across a book that was published a long time ago, 1860 something, and which I found. I can't imagine myself buying a book aged 13 or 14, but apparently I did. Anyway, I ended up with it while I was in Hong Kong. The first time anyone mentioned feng shui to me, they explained it as the principles used by a geomancer to advise relatives on where to bury their recently died relative. So where your ancestors are buried is the first time I heard about it. But later I heard about it in other contexts. Where to build a house, where to build a town, how to get things right, how to not get things wrong. And it was fascinating. And what was also fascinating was that the Chinese believed that the English had a secret kind of feng shui. Because they knew some things. They did some things terribly wrong, but they did some things very right. And one example I was given was that in the centre of what is now Kowloon, the city of Kowloon, there was a transit camp, and the transit camp was built in a swampy bit of land which was considered incredibly bad in feng shui terms. But the army drained the swamp and planted bamboo, which reversed all the bad aspects of it and made them very positive. I mean, it was basically a simple question of health. You get rid of the swamp, you get rid of the mosquitoes, and the bamboo helps take the water out of the soil. So it was interesting from two different points of view. But the thing I liked about it was the idea that got my imagination, really, was the idea that human beings, however many million years ago, were dropped into paradise, and their job was to be gardeners of this paradise and to look after it. Well, we've done a bloody awful job. But I still like the idea that that is our job. We are here to make things better, not worse. And I said this to Freya recently. The people who should be envisaging a fantastic future for us are doing the exact opposite, and that's the architectural profession. Instead of building fabulous, glittering cities, they are building dull, drab, oppressive and depressing quasi-prisons. I think they've let us down badly. But I think that is, if we have a job as a species and as, I suppose, designers, gardeners, whatever, it should be to make a paradise on earth. That should be what we should be doing. So that's my propaganda speech for today.
We all need to go live in tree houses.
Oh, no.
Well, then there'll be more trees.
Well, indeed. We should be living in things that are really suited to our psyche, not concrete blocks. I did like tree houses, though.
Tree houses are great. Oh, I could just quickly tell everybody who's watching that if they believe in planting trees, they should use, instead of Google, they should use Ecosia, ECOSIA. It's the same as Google, but every time you search for something, a tree is planted. They work with all these charities, and they also source their local, the workers are all local to the places they're planting trees, and it's all very nice. So go and use Ecosia instead of Google, everyone.
Good plan.
Doesn't cost you anything.
Good plan. I think Google have done amazing things, but I developed a suspicion and hostility to Google when they were part of a campaign funded by primarily Google and Microsoft to undermine copyright for artists, and it was called the Orphan Copyright Act, and I thought that is so sinister, so selfish. Anyway, good thoughts.
Thanks everyone. They're saying they're going to spread the word about tree Google.
There you go.
Thanks guys, save the planet.
Save the planet, yeah. I don't think the planet's in any danger of not surviving.
That's true.
I think what's the problem is it going to be suitable for human habitation, which is a different issue. An eminently solvable problem, but we have to start solving it, not compounding it. Okay, I'm going to start adding to what I've just done with that. Besides just dampening it, I'm going to start scrubbing the paint. And what that will do will make it easier for me to lift it. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not going to carry on doing that, but I know that is what I'm going to do later. It's no pine trees in this yet. I'm going to get some tissue.
Oh, we have a comment from a nice architect.
From what?
A nice architect who says sadly most projects 99% are driven by the client, the budget and codes and deadlines.
I get that. I understand very well that that's the case. However, clients don't ask for concrete blocks particularly. They are offered it with a propaganda overview.
But couldn't they say, oh, we specifically want something all nice and dream? I mean, maybe they can't even imagine because they haven't experienced something different.
Architecture as a profession has been pretty much taught the same way for nearly 100 years. And it was, modern architecture was pretty much originated from a few architects working in Germany in the 20s and 1920s at the Bauhaus. And when I was a student, I would be, I couldn't believe we were expected to design these boxes for human beings. And I remember that, I've said this before, so apologies to those of you who've heard it before, but when I asked my tutors, why on earth are we doing this? What's so inevitable about the box? And the answer that I was given was, well, form follows function. And I was bemused. I couldn't, for the life of me, figure out the function that would end up with a box. And the response to that, for me asking that, and I wasn't old enough or experienced enough to be really challenging. I started art school when I was only 17, so I didn't have a lot of experience, and I was very aware of how little I had. But when I say, but what function? What does it mean? I was told to read Corbusier, which was punishment enough to shut anyone up forever. Corbusier was a communist, and his ideas were essentially communist ideas, which, if that's what you want, that's what you get. But he didn't address human beings as human beings. He addressed them as human beings in a situation where there needed to be a rectifying of social imbalance. So he designed things that the butcher, the baker and the banker all had identical homes. And that was the one of his motivations. And making everybody have identical homes, I'm not even going to address whether or not it was a good political idea, but it was not good in and of itself. It was the architecture wasn't good for humans. It might have been good for giving them all identical boxes. That might have been a good political idea. As I say, I'm not going to address that. But it wasn't good for humans. Not the identical part of that statement, but the fact of it being boxes.
They could have all had identical round houses, Celtic round houses. What's wrong with that?
Let's not define this. Let's just say they could have all had identical houses that were designed to make, humans happier. That was eminently possible. No one addressed that then or now. It's never been addressed in terms of the teaching of architecture. Architectural students don't address that issue. How do you make sure your client, if they're going to live in what you do, how do you make sure they're happy? In the end, there is a kind of formula for that, and that is they question the client. But the client only knows what they know. They don't know what they haven't experienced. So it's, in a way, it's a circular and ultimately a cul-de-sac. It's not going to get you where you need to get to.
It's 3 minutes to 1:45, just so you know.
Okay, well, in the past we've been doing these for 45 minutes, but last week we did it for an hour, kind of by accident. I'm happy to carry on for another 15 minutes. It's slow work and you may all be bored to death, but if you're willing to hang in there, I'm going to carry on for a bit. I'm very happy to answer more questions too while we're doing it. Are you okay, by the way?
Yes, I'm very okay.
Okay, good.
Would you think about living in a hobbit house?
Well, I have had some rather terrible members of the press describe my house as Hobbit House. Not this one, but the one I designed at college. I'm hoping in the next few weeks we'll be working on the interior of that in the back garden, and then when we are, we'll film from there and people can see what it looks like. Freya was very keen to get it restored and brought back.
Do you know the architect Frank Lloyd Wright?
Of course, yeah.
Do you like his work?
He does.
Do you?
Do I?
I don't.
Some, definitely some. I mean, most people admire Falling Water as his masterpiece. I wasn't too thrilled with that. And I was taken in LA by big fans of Frank Lloyd Wright to show me some appalling things people had done to his houses. And the appalling things that people had done to his houses is they put sloping roofs on them. And I thought, well, if you want to live in a purist Frank Lloyd Wright house, that's a kind of a sacrilege. On the other hand, in absolute terms, I don't think it's doing it any harm. It's doing it a lot of good. Issue. I mean, in LA, you could live with a flat roof. In England, there are endless technical problems associated. They don't drain, and they can be wet for weeks. So it's a silly thing. You need to design for your climate as well as for your occupants. Frank Lloyd Wright came on the edge of, he came after the Art Nouveau movement, and I don't know, for me, the two movements that I liked most was the arts and crafts movement in architecture and the Art Nouveau movement. Both I thought had a lot going for them.
Oh, we've had a request to show the Kingfisher, but is that...
Oh, well, what I'll say about the Kingfisher is, before I show you, the first thing I do is I paint a silhouette of a Kingfisher. First thing is I paint a background, just roughly. And then I paint a white silhouette of the Kingfisher. White, so the overpainting has some vibrancy. And then I put broad brush colour patterns down that look roughly like the colours that would be in the Kingfisher. Once I've done that, I add texture, like feathers, and to get that softening of it, of the feather marks. And then finally, I'll add light and shade. So at the moment, I've got to just the slapping on of, the basic colours. So, and it looks very crude, but it won't look that crude when it's finished. That's it. Too long, and you'll see too much of how crude it is.
Look great.
Thank you. That's the benefit of a quick glance. And that will be on top of this. It'll be incorporated in the logo.
In a much smaller size, or is it a giant Kingfisher? Is it going to go smack bang in the middle?
It's a life-size Kingfisher, but it's painted about twice life-size. And it'll be in the logo, so it won't have to look the right size in the painting.
I see.
And in the painting, we are going to, I'm going to bring, I did say last week I'd warm it up in here. It's too bright here. This is about right. That's just the degree of warmth I wanted in it. I'm taking down the blue. I'll lower that intensity, and I might just subdue that a bit more. And then I can work into here and here. So basically this is all background for the painting at the moment. And I have plans for the foreground, but I haven't got round to that yet. We've got 10 minutes.
Well, you've been asked, is your voice always this soothing, or do you sometimes get angry and shout?
Well, what can I say? My voice isn't really soothing particularly. What happens is, for a lot of people my age, your voice gets rougher because things like acid reflux harshen your throat. So I've noticed my voice change. I was talking to somebody, I think it was Max Hastings of Caravan, and I said, what on earth do singers do when this happens to their voice? And he got me a tablet, a knife. I forget the name of it. Anyway, he said, I always take one of these before I go on stage because it's a problem. And he said, try one. And I did. And it worked. But it was a horrible taste. And it lasted about half an hour or more, just dissolving the tablet. I thought, woo, you're going to have to be pretty anxious about how you sound to do that on a regular basis. But yeah, it's this is a consequence. Anno Domini, what can I say?
I'm going to ask you one more question, which is, do you have a favourite painting?
Do I have a favourite painting?
Of yours?
It's always the one I'm working on. And usually I'm working on more than one at a time. So in my mind, this has the potential to be favourite until I start the next one. And then going back, I get asked by people who want to do exhibitions of my work or calendars in other countries. I had a very nice bunch of guys at a Japanese magazine called Strange Days, and they put out a fabulous calendar of mine in, I think it was 2008, I can't remember. Anyway, it was huge, and they wanted all pictures of mine from the early 70s, and I said, oh no, I've done much better painting since, but they wanted all that early 70s era paintings. And whereas I love some of them, I am much better at it now than I was then. But then what I knew was that if they saw them at a right stage in their life, they're the ones that sunk into their psyche. So in the end, we did a compromise on a couple, but mostly they had their way. And it was all stuff from the 70s. And there were one or two I really liked, but I did realise that I did one or two pieces then that I thought were fantastic, but I know now I could paint it better if I did them again. But they were very important to me at the time. It's one of those things. It's hard to believe, but my first album cover was over 50 years ago, 52 years ago in fact. And it would be a bit sad if I didn't learn to paint better now than I did then. Probably, in many ways, I've learned to let go of a painting easier now than I did then. But I have learned to paint better. And yeah, I guess it would be impossible to choose a painting to be my favourite. It would be my favourite from this year, my favourite from that year, my favourite of this kind. But I wouldn't want to be stuck with just one of them. I would always want more.
No desert island disc painting for you?
Maybe I could settle on 10, but I couldn't settle on one. No, at least 10. It would have to be.
All people are very concerned that the bees got rehomed.
They're concerned?
Yes, are the bees okay?
Bees, as far as I can tell, are fine. They've been moved to a hive in East Grinstead, which is 15 miles or so from where they started. So it's quite a journey. Apparently it has to be more than 3 miles or they get they come back. Yeah, as far as I know, they're doing well. And the cones came out almost intact. I imagine bees have a particular size they favour, because the guys who moved them, a man and his wife, brought boxes for the honeycombs to go in. And they all pretty much fitted. They were held in place by elastic bands, but they all pretty much fitted in the boxes. They've boxes of those honeycombs have gone straight into a new hive, which is apparently thriving. So, yeah. Yes. They can come back if they like, but not until we've renovated it, because they weren't on the inside. They were in a hole on the outside that didn't penetrate right through to the inside. It would have been dangerous for the people working on it. I mean, they would have disturbed and upset the bees. Bad for the bees, bad for the people working on it. Okay. So as soon as we finish, I'll probably put this on the floor and really give that a good drenching. But then hold it together, pull it together. I want it to look a little bit more garden-like as well. At the moment it's just woodland, there's no wildflowers or anything. So maybe it needs flowers and bees perhaps. Anyway, any more questions?
Any more questions? We haven't had any yet.
Okay. I'm hoping we will definitely finish the Kingfisher in the next couple of days. And I'm hoping I'll finish this pretty much by next week. I don't know. We'll see. But we will be doing this the same time next week. And I'll either have it finished and we do something else, or I'll finish it off. It's the other thing we're doing next week, and I think on the 9th, so next Thursday, is we're having another meeting about moving the prototype house. So that's really, hopefully, making serious progress at last. It's still looking, it's going to look worse. It's going to look worse as we dismantle it, and it's going to continue looking worse until we bring it here, reassemble it, and start renovating it, cleaning up the inside, grinding down all the paint and everything, cleaning it off, taking out the woodwork and restoring all the woodwork, although that's mostly in good shape, and putting a new floor. I don't mean just a new carpet, but it needs a whole new floor. Anyway, adventures to come. Okay, I'm going to say thank you all very much for coming. See you next week. It's, as ever, an honour that you attend, and it's good fun for me. And hopefully you'll see it on the album soon, because that's due to be finished and put out. So I guess I'm going to be under some pressure to finish this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.